Alright, friends, what makes an ending the best or our favorite? That is the question I had to think about today for today's Top 5 Wednesday prompt. Hello friends, Laura A. Grace here, and I am so very excited that you're here. I am so excited for this prompt, this topic for Top 5 Wednesday. But in case if you're not familiar with Top 5 Wednesday, I'll leave a link down below to the group on Goodreads. But in a nutshell, basically each week we answer a prompt and we use 5 books, but in this case I do manga, to reflect that said prompt. And today is favorite endings or best endings. It is always an awesome feeling, right? When you start a series, it starts out strong, you're excited, and then you get to the end and it ends just as awesome as it started. Today we're talking about those manga. We're featuring those manga and spotlighting them, and I'm really excited for the ones I've picked because I feel honestly that these are some of the best endings I have recently read, or just like in time that I have read. I put a lot of thought into this one today because I was like, man, that's a loaded prompt, loaded question of what is our favorite endings in manga. For number 1, I'm going to start with my most latest read. I binge read this when I was sick recently, and that is Boys Run the Riot. This is sort of, I guess, very different than what I usually read. I picked this up because I know that it's Pride Month, and usually I will say I don't really typically read a lot of books that probably would go well for Pride Month, but I picked it up because I was thinking about a friend who I don't know is actually transgender, as the main character is, but I was thinking of them, and I was like, I didn't know in high school that they were gay or that they were transgender. I really didn't know. Some of them, I'm sure, is just because I was naive, but I feel like a lot of my friends were very quiet about their sexual identity. And so I wanted to read this because I wanted to have just an inner look into their world. I wanted a new perspective, and I wanted friends that may identify as being gay or transgender to feel I am a safe place or just a good friend to them personally, and that they don't feel like they cannot be their real self with me. This story was so incredibly impactful and very moving. I really enjoyed these 3 guys, and the ending of this story was so hopeful. It was just, I didn't know what I wanted. I knew that I wanted it to end on a good note, especially things that happened at the end of Volume 2 and going into Volume 3 and all of the course of Volume 3. I knew that I wanted just a very hopeful thing for these guys, and I was so glad that things that we see in the beginning just come to fulfillment by the end. It was so moving, and it was very thought-provoking. One of the aspects that I really enjoyed is the strong theme of entrepreneurship and being an entrepreneur, what that means. Oh my goodness, I need more of that in manga, and I just love seeing all 3 of these young boys flourish. There's so many things I could say, and I'm gonna do my best to keep this spoiler free for all of these books because I realize we're talking about the ending here, and I do not want to give it away for anybody who picks up these stories or has read them. But this was such an eye-opening read, and I really feel like regardless if you personally identify as being a member of the LGBTQ community or a supporter or, an outsider, so to speak, I feel like this series can still touch everyone. I came into this manga wanting to learn, wanting to see things through a different worldview, and I felt like I got that and so much more. And I loved the ending of this series very much. This was probably my favorite volume out of all 4 of them, so it is a very short series, and again, just very impactful to see these 3 boys grow. For number 2, I'm really excited to feature this one. That is Library Wars, Love and War. It has been so busy recently, and I have not had a chance to actually sit down and just read. Well, outside Boys Run the Riot when I was sick, because I binge read that all day. It was very good. But I recently picked up Library Wars. I was rearranging my shelf, and I think I picked up Volume 7, and I was just rereading my favorite parts from Volume 7 all the way to the end, and I forgot how satisfying and how rewarding the end of this series is. Everything that you've been hoping for, building up to this moment, comes into play, and it was so good. I was like, I will never tire of reading this final volume. And I can honestly say that while volume 7 and in between there that I sort of skipped some pages, this one I honestly like reread from the front to the back because I loved it. I loved it. I forget how much I love this series until I pick it up, and I'm just like, these characters are so absolutely amazing, and the bonus stories are honestly some of my favorite that I've ever read in manga. They're always so funny. They're somehow always relevant to the story, even though they're like different and don't necessarily tie in, but somehow they're still relevant. It's just great. It is very, very great. And I really hope that we get a reprint of this series. I have all the volumes, but rereading it again, I'm like, people need to read this series. It honestly has a little bit of everything and is just a very unique shoujo title because it has everything, where it has action, drama, romance, more action, and like high tension that is not just like romantic tension. Like you have tension, outside conflict coming in that's affecting these characters in a really big way and almost in a life-threatening way. So I really recommend this series if you are looking for something that's not just romantic tension or a love triangle or anything like that, but you want a little bit of everything. Like this honestly has it. This ending had it. It was so great. Even after like all these years of when I first read it, I still found this ending of this story extremely satisfying and I was so very happy. I was so very happy. I need to honestly sit down and read it from volume 1 to the end so I can get all of that goodness and just even more be like happy, satisfied with the ending because it is so very good. For number 3, I'm really excited to feature this one, and that is Rosie in the Labyrinth. This recently, like the 3rd volume recently released, I think just a few months ago, and it is such a moving ending. This reminds me a little bit of Boys Run the Riot, where it has such a hopeful, moving, impactful ending that just leaves you in tears a little bit. And this one definitely left me in tears because I feel like I was really nervous. A lot of things are unfolding in this final volume, but then you get to the end and it's just like, wow. Like, thank you, mangaka. Like, that was such a moving and heartfelt ending. And it's a short series, but it packs a punch for sure. And I love Rosie. I love our main girl, and just the themes. The themes are so very powerful in this story. And I think I do talk a little bit more about those themes in my video review that I do have. It's still spoiler free, but I feel like I go a little bit more in depth there. One of the most powerful themes I feel is the light versus darkness and how light always overcomes, it always wins. And there's a few other things, especially one moment, like you gotta read to the very end, because if you can get to that scene, you will start crying and it will be like, oh my goodness, like this is so emotional, but it's a happy, emotional, and I am just so thankful for the theme of found family. I absolutely love and adore that in manga, and this manga just really fulfills that trope and delivers with it and just leaves the reader, I really feel, just on a hopeful, warm, fuzzy kind of note, even if you're still wiping tears away. This is so funny. So I don't actually have the volume in my hands because I took a picture of it this morning, but I am going to say Haikyuu, like I don't have volume 45. It's out in my living room currently, and I was taking a picture of it. So, but yes, Haikyuu for number 3 forever will always be my number 1 favorite ending of all time. I love it so very much. There's so many different things I can say about that manga, about that volume specifically. I have reread that volume 45, at least twice now. I even was rereading it before filming this video, and I love it. I love it so much. I mean, Sensei, he went above and beyond. Like, I feel like he just saw the hearts of his fans, of his readers, and he's like, here you go. And he just served us up this beautiful feast that is very emotionally moving, but also very powerful. And you're just like, yes. I mean, obviously Hinata is our main character, and for me, obviously, I'm going to be cheering the most for him, but I feel so many different characters just were featured, and just that it was beautiful. It was just so beautiful. Like, I don't know how to describe how much I really love just the ending of that story. I mean, it was everything. It was everything. I cry every single time I read it. I didn't this time, but when I felt myself getting emotional, I was like, oh, time to put it down. Time to go do something else, because I know how I am, and just, I was rereading a very significant part of the volume, and it's just everything you've wanted for Hinata from the very beginning. It honestly honestly never gets old. I cannot wait to see it animated because I know it will be even more just amazing seeing it on screen. So yes, Haikyuu. Haikyuu is my favorite ending I've ever read in any manga. It will probably always and forever be that way. It is just, even outside of my obvious biasness of how much I love Haikyuu, I feel like it is a very good ending though, and just for any reader that they're gonna walk away from this series very happy, very like heartbroken as well, because you're like, Haikyuu has ended, but it is just so beautiful, and just seeing how far Hinata, how these guys have come is so amazing, and I absolutely love it, and I never ever thought that there would be another team to measure and even at times go a little bit above my love for Karasuno, because I love Karasuno so very much, one of my favorite all-time teams, but man, that team at the end, I'm gonna be honestly like a cheerleader in my living room for a fictional team that doesn't exist but I wish did. It's just that good. It's so very good, and I cannot recommend it enough or talk about it, gush enough how amazing it is. For number 5, technically this series is not over, but I mean, like, this series has to be featured, and that is Kaiju number 8. Oh my goodness, every time I read this, dude, I am left on this book high. I feel like I'm on cloud 9, and I just cannot get enough of these guys. Like, there's so much tension and action, and the manga will, like, with both volumes, we get a cliffhanger, and it's just like, I'm in a state of shock, in a state of like, I need the next volume, and I feel that with a lot of manga. That's why I like binge reading rather than reading like individual volumes as they release. This series is definitely an exception because I must read it every time it comes out, and that's part of why I wanted to feature it, because when I was comparing it to other series and that drive and that desire and that need to have the next volume ASAP, this takes the number 1 for that. Like, I mean, except for Sign of Affection, Kaiju number 8 and Sign of Affection, they're on pretty equal ground right now, but they're different genres, so I feel like they would be equal because of that, because like, they're different genres. But this series, every time I read it, and I'm like, I'm just so invested into these characters. I mean, I feel like I leave reality and I'm just in this kaiju world, seeing how these kaiju are going to be defeated. And volume 2, oh my goodness, I fussed at my husband. He's been reading, I know I've said before, I'm sure, but he's been reading on Shonen Jump, and I was like, why didn't you prepare me? Why didn't you warn me? And he's like, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. Like, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. But I'm not going to yell. You guys, you know, don't need my ranting. You don't need it. But my husband gets it every time I read these, and I love it so very much. Like, I really feel it has some of the, I feel like some, I don't know if I want to say favorite, but I do feel best endings just because of how invested I am into these characters and into their lives, and seeing them grow individually and seeing them, of course, triumph over these other kaiju. It's very good. I just cannot recommend this series enough. Cannot wait for volume 3 to hurry up and release. And that, my friends, are all of my picks. I could not think of an honorable mention for today. I could not think of one. So I'm going to stick with these 5 because I'm very happy with all these choices. I stand very strong behind them and think they just really fit for today's prompt. But I would love to hear from you guys. What would you choose for a favorite ending or best ending in manga? You could totally choose more than one. I just would love to hear from you guys. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. Bye!